Hello, everybody. It's your boy Pulsicard here, back again with another trailer reaction and analysis. Today's gonna be a bit different, as one of our viewers sent me something sent by someone called OK Xaren. I don't know. Uh, but anyway, I saw that they were a bit of a popular tuber with over 13,000 subscribers. Shouts out. Uh, and I saw that the viewer sent me that they have a new official trailer for something. So let's watch it, and then I'll give my patent and policy analysis afterwards. All right, here we go. Oh, Elf.
Your costume is pretty.
It's not a costume, fuckwit.
Oh.
I used to
What?
be a human, but I was raised by an elf.
I'd watch. Oh, Santa Claus. I know that guy. Oh. Okay, well, I thought that was a bit interesting. I'm not really familiar with this OK Xaren person or whatever this guy does, but let's go. Let's analyze this. And so first off, if we kind of play this here, kind of has this PG parental guide suggested warning here, and these are usually used, before movie trailers or before game trailers even, just to kind of prepare the audience for the demographic that this type of media is aimed towards, and it seems like this stream is PG, which means that have your kids watch it with you, for this a very hep Christmas, like come and watch it. Uh, and then some mildly rude human language. Of course, we get a bit silly here, online on the internet, right? All right. All right. So right here is what seems to be a clip from the hit movie Elf, starring Will Ferrell. And as we see here, this Christmas tree, and there's also a menorah here, which I think is very curious because Christmas is usually regarded as a Christian
It's not a
holiday,
costume,
while Jewish holidays such as Hanukkah is usually celebrated around this time. So very interesting.
fuckwit.
Oh.
I used to be a human, but I was raised by an elf.
All right. So as we kind of get into this like cold open, right? We kind of start with this song by Scumbag. I actually know the song. Scumbag. Fuck it. I want to go to hell because I'm a piece of shit and it ain't hard to fucking tell. I think it's a very interesting choice for this trailer because it really gives a lot of kinetic energy when it comes to pairing the visuals with the audio, because audio is really half of a picture, right? As we all know that quote. And so it's very interesting to see that as the trailer goes along. Santa Claus, of course, a very popular holiday figure. He's a very jolly fat man wearing red, very red, velvety, very premium clothing. I can see here actually this very interesting choice that and it's actually a papyrus, I think. Papyrus? Yeah, papyrus font, or some kind of like medieval feeling, like typeface, right? And it kind of evokes the older traditional sense of Christmas, but kind of combined with the newer more modernized sense of how commercialized Christmas is, which I think this trailer really reflects. I want to go back here. So actually, it's actually interesting. This is actually a clip from I think Infinity War of the people of Wakanda coming to kind of fight the evils of Thanos' army. Right? It's very interesting here that HEPH is also seen running with them, because it truly has a sense of solidarity that HEPH has with these kind of more insular people of Wakanda, because as we all know, the Wakandan people have kind of been more of like a hidden society within Africa. But of course, at the course of like Black Panther and everything, they kind of became more, well known around the globe, and it's kind of very revealing here that Hef is also running alongside them because it shows that despite Wakanda hiding their resources from people, Hef is very supporting figure that still supports these very strong people. So I think it's very interesting. As we can actually see, I think this is Hef right at the like a nuclear testing site, right? And as we all know, like Oppenheimer, created the nuclear bomb. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, very tragic, nuclear bombings onto the great nation of Japan, right? And so it's actually we see here how Hef is kind of reacting to testings of this, weapon of mass destruction, right? And kind of how much of like a man-made horror, nukes are. I think it's very, very meaningful that we have him reacting to this. As we can see here, it appears that he's reacting to something off screen that we can't really see in the camera, right? As we can actually see in the background, it's actually very interesting here. We actually see in the left side of a Christmas tree, there's some lights and some ornaments, right? It's kind of very warm setting with wood and glass and a very traditional Christmas tree, right? So I think it's very interesting how much distressed how distressed this Hef person appears to be in this scene in this very warm Christmas setting, which I'm looking forward to seeing later in whatever this trailer is representing. Okay, so we have him in a pool of blood here. It appears to be dying. It appears to be him dying. I always hate it when trailers put like the last scene of a movie in their trailers. Like come on, man. Like let us watch the actual movie. Uh, so actually see stuff like this. Yeah, but like whatever. It appears to be him like lying in a pool of blood. This appears to be a scene from Home Alone. Seems to be Hephaestus kind of paying homage to great, seminal Christmas movies. And one of them being, Home Alone, of course. Appears to be the scene of him, putting shaving cream on himself, on his face, right? And him screaming because it hurts because it's aftershave, right? And so, I think it's very interesting how Hef is kind of taking the role of Kevin McAllister. A kid who is kind of, you know, seen as lesser in this family dynamic, right? So it's kind of seeing that how, you know, through his support of things like Wakanda and everything, that he's still feels isolated from more familial structures, right? Which I think is really interesting. Like a few things just happened right here. So it appears to be half proposing to himself in this kind of like Greek tableau, right? I think it's very interesting because I think it represents a lot about stuff about like self-love and loving yourself, and I think this scene in this movie will be really meaningful in context because I think this half character kind of feels down about himself, and so this scene of him proposing to himself is an expression of self-love, which I think is really really deep and meaningful. And then afterwards we have him being crushed by some kind of boulder. Yeah, seems to be at some kind of mountainside by the ocean. It seems that he sees it coming, right? Which I think is really interesting. Like going back to like the Greek illusions from earlier, I think this is kind of a Sisyphus metaphor where instead of Hef rolling a ball up a hill only for it to come back down, it only comes to the rock is representative of his struggles. So he's constantly getting crushed by them. Which I think is really interesting. And the next shot is him in some kind of digital world. Perhaps he's trapped in some kind of digital entertainment location. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, he seems to really enjoy it, which I think is interesting. And here he's kind of spazzing out. That's not spazzing out actually. I think that's an offensive term. I apologize, but he's kind of moving erratically, as they see here, screaming in pain of some sort, and some kind of blue energy forming around him, which I think is interesting. So yeah. And then here we have another scene from Elf by Will Ferrell. Yes. Here we have a coffin. I think this happens after the Saw, the segment of him uh, in his own pool of blood. I think it kind of represents the death of life of Path. He's going through so many tribulations, like him, in his own pool of blood, him being crushed by Sisyphus's rock, right? And so I think it's really meaningful to see how peaceful Hef is in this kind of state of being where he's not really living, right? It's kind of very powerful message just to talk about how you know in this state of life where we're not really living, we kind of seem to find the most peace in it, which I think is really interesting. And him with Disney, I think this is like more of his like kind of showing more of his upbringing, right? Kind of showing how he's kind of succeeded earlier as in his career, but kind of as this film goes on, he kind of gets into more troubled realities, which I think is really interesting. And now we have here a classic, very Star Wars. Perhaps him recreating a scene or being part of a scene, of him pulling out his lightsaber, ready to fight Darth Vader, right? As we all know. Very, very interesting. Okay, a couple things again. I think it's another Home Alone clip, which is interesting, as I've said before. And then I think it's a very interesting shot. It's one of the only shots in the trailer where we actually kind of see the real world around him, and we actually see a few telling things here. We see a toolbox, a snare drum, and this kind of like dilapidated building, right? And it's very, very telling to see this kind of like living condition this Hef Christmas person is in, right? It's very like in this kind of like world, like he's kind of walking out into this peaceful, green lush of the wilderness, right? Well, he's kind of living behind this more dilapidated, you know, human-made kind of creations around him, right? It kind of shows this kind of like cyclical, you know, system of nature, right? Of how we kind of return to nature in our more troubled times to find peace within ourselves, which I think is really interesting. And then in his last shot, it seems to be him flying up with a little twinkle in his eye. Isn't that fun? And so I think it's really interesting too, because it shows him kind of like ascending to a higher plane, either through heaven or flight or whatever have you. But it really seems that he's happy, and like he's kind of ascended his own plane of diegesis, because he's looking at us, the viewer, kind of breaking the fourth wall, kind of breaking the diegesis of his world, and looking at us, the viewer, right, and kind of showing how happy it is. He's letting us, the viewer, kind of acting like a higher being watching this. He's looking at us, in this higher plane of consciousness, and he's smiling, right? Like even if he knows that there are stronger forces at bay that kind of control his life, that he's still happy, which I think is really meaningful and special, because I think it really shows you how even if we could have knowledge about everything about the universe, there is still a possibility of us you know being happy, as shown by Hef. And I really think this higher plane of being really plays into his kind of like his foolish nature, because I think from this trailer I kind of get the vibe that he's kind of like a clown, or kind of like a fool, kind of this like very like foolish person that doesn't know a lot about the real world, or more so like societal standards. But instead of that, he's kind of more higher, not maybe not religiously, but kind of like higher just in a state of being, in terms of being enlightened. And despite him being a fool, he's still closer to this higher state of being, when compared to other people who are more stuck in society and stuck into societal norms placed upon us, which I think is really interesting. Alright, we have here a very happy Christmas. Yes. So yeah. Um. So yeah, I thought it was just really interesting. Really interesting trailer that one of my lovely viewers sent to me. And so you know, I thought there was a lot of meaning coming from that trailer. I thought I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie or like what is this? I don't know, but like movie, TV show, whatever. I don't really know. But I really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys watch this trailer, like, comment, and react if you liked it. Rate 5 stars. I really enjoyed watching this trailer. Comment down below in the comments if you have any other suggestions for me to react to, and I'll maybe take a look at them. So this has been Pulse to Cart. I'm signing out.